Hi, Kaylee. This is Sister Finch. I was just looking at the color comp that you submitted for your final project. I was wondering a couple of things. My first thought was, why did you choose this thumbnail? I went back and I was looking at your other thumbnails, and I saw that you said that you really liked thumbnail number 5 with a lily pad in the mountains, and you could do some interesting things with that atmospheric perspective. And you also like number 3, I think it was this one, number 3 and number 9. Um, as far as non-representational, I think number 9 is your strongest design. You'd have to play a little bit more with values and color in that design. But I did notice one of your classmates said that they thought that number 1 was your strongest, and so and I can see and I can see why she said that is because you've got light, medium, and dark values on this thumbnail. You also have some, small, medium, large shapes. Um, but even this one could probably use some work with adding some more circular elements into it to repeat this focal point. And so that's something that I need to see you doing over here, because over here you've got these two lines that are the same thicknesses. You've got the circle shape, you've got these thinner lines, but there's just not a whole lot of interest and not a whole lot to tie it together and to really make it feel like it's a cohesive working design. It can work. If you were to do that, there's going to have to be some pretty major adjustments as far as making these shapes have some interest, have a little bit more. You can make one thicker. You can make these thin shapes would need to have a little bit more variation. I see you kind of tried to vary the length of them and how they projected out from the larger shape. You might want to consider varying the width of each one. You might want to consider, the spacing in between each one. Make sure that they're not all super similar. Think about like a barcode, for example, how they're not. You've got some thicker lines, some thinner lines. Um, Spaces are still about the same, but if you just think about your positive and negative space on that. If you were to use this design as well, you need to add the circular element somewhere in a subordinated way. So you could do that with like outlines, larger subordinated circles that are like lighter in value. Um, Things like that. Also with this circle, I can't tell if it's black or purple. It looks like this whole image was photographed rather than scanned. I can say that because of the variation in the values. It looks like it has a shadow falling on it. These lines aren't straight with the edges, etc. So it's really hard for me to grade a, a design because the camera is going to skew it. Um, a, a scanner, it lays flat and it scans it just how it is. The camera has a circular lens on it and it distorts the images. If you've ever tried to take a picture of something that's square, you'll notice that usually two of the sides converge, and it's just hard to get that clear image from a photograph. So for your final, you will want to scan your image in. Also make sure that you are submitting it in the orientation that you want it to be graded. As this design sits right now, your focal point is a circle shape, mostly due to value contrast and shape contrast. Because of its position in the design, down in the corner, you got this heavy shape. It kind of weights down the design in this corner. I don't know if you can feel that. But when you have a large shape toward the bottom of the design, it weights it. Now imagine if you had that shape up here. What would the feeling be? Well, it would feel light because it's almost like it's a balloon that's floating up here, and that would have a whole different feeling. And so when I talk about feeling in design, those are the things that I'm saying. Another thing with this design, even though it's non-representational, it needs to communicate something. And so And so that's what I'm saying with this feeling, what are we trying to communicate in this non-representational design? Um, as it is, it's just not very interesting because um, there's a lot of uniformity, a lot of repeating, without a lot of variation. And so to make it more interesting, you need to add that variation element. And then you can say, okay, I'm communicating this is like a forward moving design. We've got this kind of these diagonal lines that are projecting almost in an arrow, pointing us in this direction, but we've got this shape that comes down and is holding us anchored right here. And so try to think of like, it may sound silly, but like a story, that goes along with, that's why I say maybe add another circular element in here somehow in a subordinating way. It helps tie it all together into a design. I don't want to be discouraging, and I hope that I'm not. But there is some work that needs to be done with this design. I'm sure you probably already knew that. Um, and also just go with your gut. If there's one that speaks to you, one of your thumbnails that speaks to you, that's usually the first rule of thumb, is to do the one that works for you, because that's the one that you're going to find the most passion in, and you're going to want to make it look as best as you have a connection to it when you choose the design that you want to do. So, if you agree with Rachel about this being your strongest design, then make it work. And, maybe take some of the suggestions, what are you trying to communicate? How are you going to communicate it? Adding more variation and contrast, making your focal point. The focal point, sorry, that's someone else's. Focal point does need to be within the rule of thirds. Right now, it's not quite. If you think about dividing this roughly in thirds this way and this way, it's actually a little bit less than thirds, the golden section. Your focal point would need to be somewhere in one of these quadrants, right here, right here, right here, or right here in your design. And be sure that when you submit your design, you submit it in the orientation it wants to be graded. If you want it in a portrait orientation, then I will grade it in a portrait orientation. Sometimes I have students that do landscapes and they flip it on its side. And I'm like, well, I'll generally grade it as a landscape and then just mark them down a few points on craftsmanship. But I hope they don't want me to grade them with their trees going sideways. So just keep that in mind when you submit your design. And Keely, please reach out to me if you have any questions. I'm available all weekend. I'll be listening to conference this weekend. But I'll have my phone on me, my computer. Well, I'll be at my in-laws' house, but I can hop on their computer if I need to, and reply to emails or give you another video feedback if you'd like. You can reach out to me. My phone number is 208-206-8235. And you can text me. I often have students text me, hey, would you look at this design for me? Let me know your initial thoughts. And I'm more than happy to do that with whatever design you choose. If you choose this one, then that's great. And just make it work. And otherwise, if you want to scrap it and start over, that's fine too. And have me look at something else. This one, I would imagine would probably get, if it were cleaned up craftsmanship and stuff, make sure that you're not modeling going from light to dark within a shape. All the colors need to be flat and opaque. But I'd imagine probably get about B- on the final, roughly. C+, B-, something like that. But just make sure that this is the rubric. Make sure that you are following the rubric and that you're applying the design concepts that we've talked about and learned about all semester. And let me know if you have any questions. Have a good weekend, and I look forward to seeing what you do end up submitting for the final. I hope that you've had a wonderful semester. I know this probably isn't your only class, and I just wish you the best in everything that you do. Okay, bye, Keely.